All right, guys, back again. Rick Snyder, Shipley, Swine Genetics. Welcome to another episode 3 of Hog Jack, the podcast. Sitting here with Randy Shipley, Mitch Dugan, Aaron Higgins. We are going to guide you through another topic today. We're going to talk about the boar selection as far as it pertains to us. You know, when we pick out boars at shows, the boars we raise, boars we might buy on a private sale from another breeder. As far as boars we might select when we're breeding our sows here for ourselves, or breeding gilts that we're going to sell to you guys as bred gilts, and also your own sows at home. How we can help guide you through the selection process when you got your own sows and you're trying to figure out what boar you might like to breed them to here at Shipley Swine Genetics. So basically, let's start off talking about when we go to a show, maybe a big national show like Louisville or World Pork Expo, or even, Missouri State Fair. We brought, a couple Berkshire boars back that we're really proud of too. Randy, when you're going to these boar shows and, you're sitting there and you're watching, several hundred or 1,000 boars, walk in front of your face at these shows, tell the guys, what are you, I guess, the first thing you're looking at and thinking about when you're watching these boar shows?
Guys, anytime I go to a national show, I guess I try to watch the entire show. According who's lining the hogs up, it doesn't make any difference to me. And it doesn't make any difference to me whether the boar's champion or if he's 7th or 8th or 9th in class. We're looking for boars that we think will fit here. We're always looking for boars that are going to make really productive kind of hogs, productive type of females, boars that have really, really good feet and legs. I'm not talking about just good enough feet and legs. I'm talking about really good. In a perfect world, we're going to buy boars and bring in here that are going to make females that are going to not just be maybe 70% successful, but 100% successful. Underlying your counts, and on the bar side of things, we want to put as much muscle in them as we can, but we want those boars to stay with enough of a production look that they can actually make females. So we're looking for boars that have muscle, but not round muscle. We're looking for boars that got really good feet and legs, but we want flat bone and big feet. We want boars that have enough neck length, enough rib cage, so that they can grow, and enough center body. So, yeah, all those things kind of count, Rick.
No, I agree 100%. And, when we go to these big shows, a lot of times, we see the same sets of guys out there and the same breeders, that have been doing it for a long time as well. And there's different firms that, we have became, very friendly with them. And, we buy their boars quite a bit when we see them out and stuff like that. So, when you've got someone we've bought boars from before and we've gotten along good, that kind of goes a long way too. Do you think?
Well, that's part of it. Yep. And it doesn't make any difference really whether it's a guy that has been at the national shows for the last 50 years or if it's a guy that's his first year. We're studying boars. Pedigree does have a little bit to do with it, but design and look and flexibility is a lot more.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And then, as you guys notice, you jump on our website, and you look through, the boar offerings that we have. You'll notice that a lot of them are raised here, by us on our own farm. And, we don't take boars out to exhibit at these national shows because for us, we'd rather just keep them, drive them across the road to the boar stud and collect them and use them here. So, a lot of times that starts, in the farrowing house or before then, even, when we're breeding sows for, potential to try to make a boar out of, certain sow or boar combination. There's lots of times, we go through on our day 7s and stuff and we figure out what litters, we might want to give a shot to. So tell me a little bit about your selection process then when, we're from breeding the sows to selecting what boars you want to keep at day 7, years, days old, and then up to they, grow up to be 200, 250 pounds and off from there.
Yeah. Well, when we go to these shows, you have to rely a little bit on the people to tell you the facts and hopefully they tell you the right facts. When we get a chance to select a boar here that we think is just as good as what we're going to buy any place, which in a lot of cases, that's exactly what we think. We know what that female did. So I rely a lot on Mitch and Aaron on the females. They're the ones that are in the farrowing house. They're watching them in the nursery. I really don't start paying attention to the boars until they get up into the finishing barn. Now they do. We do. They do come down and talk to me a little bit about, hey, should we keep these? Should we keep these? What should we cut? What should not cut? And so here we're just keeping boars out of our very top end sows. If it's a sow that's number one, raised a lot of pigs. Number two, milk's really good. Number three, has got some longevity and been around here, and she's done it more than 1 or 2 or 3 times. Then we look at what she's bred to. Is it a mating that we think will really produce, has a shot at really producing a good boar? And then those guys, they're up there in the farrowing house, and they're on a daily basis, and they're watching these things and cutting them and keeping them, and they help a lot in doing the selection early on. Once they get into the finishing barn, and guys, we used to sell a lot of boars, and now we just don't sell near as many, and nobody does. The whole industry's changed, and so it makes somewhat of a difference. So as they're selecting these boars, when they go back up to neuter some of these boars, we're going to look at early bone. We're going to look at flat bone. We're going to look at foot size. There's certain things that make a difference in the end, and so they help do a lot of selection early on. Once those boars get to the finishing barn, then they need to grow. Then they need to compete, and they need to continue with the things that we think they've got a shot at. And when 1 or 2 or 3 are always going to filter to the top, and we like to put those boars in the boar studs and offer them to you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And not only that, but to use them here.
And we use them on our own sows, quite a bit too here.
Yep.
And one point that Randy touched on, we put them up in a finishing barn, and I'm talking in a pen with 20, 25.
They don't get pampered.
No, they're on a slatted floor, eating commercial hog feed in a pen of 20 to 25, and Aaron's going through that barn every day, and lots of times he reports back to us what he sees in the barn. Hey, there's a Duroc boar in room 3, pen 2. Let's go take a look at him, and then we'll end up bringing him down and maybe put him in a test barn pen. See how he does down there.
Yeah, and sometimes guys, we don't bring them down and put them in a test barn pen. We just let them compete clear to the very end, and sometimes we need to find out. We want to make sure that this is the number one board in this age bracket, and he covers all the bases, and they need to fight in competition and
there's lots of times they go from the finishing barn to the yard to the boar stud all about the same day.
Yeah, there is.
About the same day. We've done that a bunch of times.
And then some of them don't make it.
Yeah. And, guys, we do have a lot of teaser boars. When we're breeding these sows, we put a lot of these boars that are just not quite good enough to go across the road. Damn close, but maybe just a nickel short in a certain area or something like that.
Yeah.
But these are boars that we do actually offer for sale as a live boar. We do still sell a handful, like you said, not as many as we used to, but there is still boars available for guys that want to do it at home and have boars available. So jumping base here just a little bit, private sale boars. There's been a couple of those that we've put in here lately. Not at a national show, not here, but maybe there's a firm, a guy that we know that we've dealt with, and we get pictures and videos sent to us
all the time,
every day.
Yeah.
And a lot of those are really good, and a lot of those are really close. And there's times where we get a video and we go, oh shit, we got to make a drive and we go look at this thing. So
hi, JC.
That's our daughter getting home from golf. So she probably did not expect us to be in here recording, regardless. Private sale boars, we do.
Yeah, we're always very interested, and we always love getting videos from everybody. If you've got one you think's close, you think we might be interested in, would be tickled to death to take a peek at him. If we've got some interest, we'll get back to you in a heartbeat. And like Rick said, we'll go take a peek. There's a lot of boars that we get tapes on or pictures of, and they're good hogs, so they're maybe just not quite what we're looking for. And then, we just kind of bow out gracefully. But we love getting those videos and pictures. You just never know. And once in a while, someone will send us a video and go, wow, we'll jump in the truck and take off. But No, so please keep sending us those videos of whatever you might have you think's good enough. And,
Yeah.
just because it's not good enough for us doesn't mean it might not be champion at the World Park Expo. Yeah. Just maybe not quite what we're looking for.
Each of those pens at the boar stud, it's quite a competition. Mm-hmm. Those boars have to be damn good.
Well, we want them to be.
And we want them to be.
Yep.
To take up a pen in the boar stud, we got a lot of boars on hand, but I mean, they earn their spot.
Yeah. As soon as we find one or raise one we think's better, then boar number 10's gone.
Yeah, that's a rotating scale for sure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we're selecting the boars that we put in the boar stud for you guys. Mitch, Aaron, you guys are out there breeding sows and gilts quite a bit. You got a group of gilts out there. We're making our bred gilts for people. Those gilts come in all different shapes, sizes, styles, abilities, qualities, stuff like that. When you're out there breeding gilts, talk to us a little bit about what you're looking for when you're seeing gilts, that are tall and skinny, or gilts that are short and thick, and stuff like that. When you're, trying to decide, what boar do I want to breed them to. And a lot of times, like these Yorkshire gilts and these F1 gilts and stuff, or, even the Berks and Durocs, a lot of times, we might decide to breed those cross or to a purebred boar of, a different breed and make some F1s and stuff like that. So dive into that just a little bit for the people.
Well, I mean, first we're out there breeding gilts, we have orders. So, we'll have like a 1050 order, 1550 order, 1950 or 2500. And it kind of that just based on the quality of the gilt that we're breeding. If we find one that's that kind of quality, and then we'll just kind of take a look at the gilt and see what we think she needs. Does she need to be a touch stouter boned? Does she need to have a little better hip and hind leg, kind of a deal, and breed her to a boar that kind of complements that area of her. If we're breeding purebred hogs, we're trying to breed flat bone to flat bone to make those hogs productive and make them
better.
Yeah, make them kind of mature the right way, if you want to say that. Another thing too, guys raising club pigs, we might lean on a boar that has a little more power, a little more muscle. If you're wanting the club pig kind of litter, we tend to try to breed those with a little more muscle, a little more power. Rick was talking about these Berkshire gilts, and we breed a lot of Berkshire gilts to black exotic boars for guys to sell club pigs out of, and that deal's worked really well. One thing that does is it keeps your pigs color. It keeps them black. You'll have black belted pigs.
So many people want up ears.
Yeah, up-eared pigs. You don't have the down ears with the red gene and stuff like that. But these Berkshires that we raise, they're kind of a little softer, a little more pliable,
Bigger rib.
Yeah, so we kind of need to breed them to black crossbred boars. It's got more elevation, got more pretty, got a little more power. That's kind of how we complement those. And then on the pure side of it, we'll have an order for a Yorkshire gilt bred Yorkshire for replacement females or something like that. And so we'll kind of pick out one of the more productive Yorkshire boars that we got on stud and breed her that one. We kind of make every combination that you could ever want, and really just kind of do it by sight and what complements the gilt and what boar complements the gilt the best.
Yeah, for sure. We can breed anything you might want.
Yeah,
Yorkshire to Yorkshire, Yorkshire to Hampshire.
Yeah,
Burke to Duroc. Has been a little bit of a popular.
Yeah.
Meat quality cross we've made.
Yeah, that's a good meat quality cross.
You're getting extra growth rate for the Duroc. You have the extra, meat quality with the Berkshire. One of the kind of crosses that, and it was really popular a while ago. You guys used to make a lot of them, and we made several litters here recently. Was that we went back to making some Hamp Durocs. I know, Aaron, you see them in the finishing barn a lot, the Hamp Durocs. And what's the first thing you always tell us about those?
Yeah, they're always 20, 30 pounds bigger than everybody else.
They grow.
They grow.
Yeah. So Aaron, he's up there in the finishing barn, and we're just calling them HDs, Hamp Durocs, and that's the first thing he comes and tells us. Maybe these things are growing. We turned out a set of gilts not too long ago up on the hill that we're going to be breeding pretty soon, and safe to say they're 10 to 20% bigger growth rate than anything else in those pens.
Yeah, Hamp Durocs make really, really, really good sows. And then you breed them to a black exotic boar to add a ton of power to them. And those pigs, those ears on a Hamp Duroc are kind of like half mask. You breed them to a black exotic boar, and those ears come straight up. And then you've got a really good kind of a club pig that's going to perform. A lot of you folks, and I listen to you all the time on the telephone, a lot of you folks talk about hogs that won't grow.
Yeah, they don't have to be 9-10 months old.
Right, right. You get a Hamp Duroc bred gilt, you get a red black exotic, you're going to a hog show at 6 months, and you may be even hold at that point.
Yeah, I know a lot of you guys have came and you bought club pigs from us here and Mitch and Aaron and stuff like that. And, we do believe in putting a lot of the purebred genetics, back in on the south side. And, a lot of us even, we started putting some Durocs back in on the mama side. And, a lot of these pigs might be out of a sow that's got, a Duroc on one side of the pedigree. And so, the club pigs you're buying might be, 25% Duroc. And man, them things grow. If you ever have trouble, you hear a lot of people, they make it to the fair and they barely make the bottom weight, or they don't even make the bottom weight. And, putting some of these pure genetics, at least in on the south side, I think it's got a lot of value to that.
Has a lot of value for growth.
For growth, for sure.
Yep.
For growth, for sure.
Yep.
Aaron, he kind of dabbles in spots quite a bit at home. And a lot of our spot boars that you'll see in the boar stud you might see, Higgins Farms on the pedigree. You know a lot more about these spots than probably all three of us combined. He's kind of been the spot expert. So, any spot related question, I'm going to turn you over to Aaron Higgins if you call me, because he sure knows them. Moving on from that, when we're breeding sows of our own sows back there, we might buy a Duroc boar here. Or we got a couple that we're awful proud of that we just put in a boar stud that we either raised or bought. And tell me about, some of the thought processes. A lot of times I know, we've got a popular boar in and then we get a string of Yorkshire sows or Duroc sows or whatever. And we about breed half the farm to some of these boars. So tell us a little bit about the thought process on sometimes, you get that really good, powerful boar that you like an awful lot. And it's just, we're just going to flood the farm in that genetics.
Well, and sometimes that can be a bad thing, but it's awfully hard not to do. We've raised one here this summer or spring that we fell in love with that we call Schools Out, and as heavy boned and as big a footed and as good as anything I've seen out in the country this year. We've had an opportunity to buy a really, really good female maker in crazy pieces. A boar that was a little off at the show, placed second in class, come from Doug Sturts, that it looks like he's going to be a tremendous, tremendous female maker, but as big a footed and as heavy a boned as you're going to find, and has the pieces and making females. That's really, really important. And then at Louisville, I come across the boar that I just had to own, and from Jesse Heimers, and part of that, guys, was the fact that of the sow herd. He's got an old sow in him called 318-13, and we had a boar that we lost this spring that had 318-13 as a mother, and then in the pedigree 2 other times that made some absolutely phenomenal females. And so and then he passed away on us here this spring. We was getting ready to breed pretty heavy back to him for summer. And Jesse and Carl had that boar at Louisville, and he ended up being reserve champion. And I thought he was as good as I'd seen, and his skeleton was so correct. The same with all 3 of those boars. And so all of a sudden, we have the 3 best Duroc boars that we've had that I've ever started with this time of year to make a set of pigs out of. And so, a lot of that thought process is, number one, we do really like to do inbreeding, breed some of those pedigrees back together, kind of lock some of those really good traits in. But at the same time, we have to bring in outcrosses in order to keep the Duroc growth and keep things coming. So that is some of the process. We're looking at these females that we've got to breed, and some of these sows, and we know what they've done in the past, and we're wanting to continue what we're doing. So it's just a matter, anytime you're breeding hogs, guys, anytime, you can make it. You can say, well, I just want to line up the really, really popular sires. Well, if you do that very long, you're out of business. you need to line up maturity patterns, and you need to line up the sow side. You need sow side of any pedigree seems to carry the most power. It took me a while to figure that out, but in the last 55 years, it's 100% true every time. And so lining up sows, getting good sows and pedigrees as many times as you can is really, really, really valuable. Very, very valuable. I'm sorry. But the most important thing, guys, is the maturity patterns you're putting together. You know, if you've got a sow that's a little harder made, or maybe not quite enough for rib, or a little quicker, or those pigs look better at 50 pounds, then you need to breed them to hogs that are maybe the opposite of that. Anytime
If you
line,
want your pigs to look good at the show, you know.
yeah, right. If you want them to mature right. Now here at the farm, and not maybe at your house, but at my farm, we're always trying to make the very, very best females we can make. And you know, if you're in the bar business, then we need to talk about doing something else. You know, we get a lot of phone calls, guys, of guys saying, well, you know, this is what my pedigree of my gilt is, or my sow is, and what do you think will work the best? Well, you know, I can give them my opinion on what information I have, but I have a lot of guys and guys that works really well. If you want to text me a picture of what you're breeding, or whether it's of a 2-year-old sow, or if it's her gilt picture of 2 years ago, a real quick look doesn't take very long. You can kind of figure out what her maturity pattern might be like, and make them make suggestions that we think will make those pigs better. And everybody wants those pigs to be really, really good at the end. You know, I want to do good wherever we're going to take these hogs at. Okay, well then this is what we have to do. Now, if they want them to look really, really good at 50 pounds so they can sell them for a little more money, we can tell them, you know, we should be glad to tell you how to handle that too. But most of the people that we deal with, and I think you guys would agree, most of the people we deal with, they're interested in how good can we make these hogs. You know, what is the end product going to look like at the very, very end? And we're tickled to death to help all of you guys with that.
Yeah, we get calls, you know, all the time on you know, semen sales where, you know, they have a general idea, or, you know, maybe I want to use this boar, and then once we start kind of talking about them and figuring out what style of sow they might have, or maybe they don't even know. You know, I know we handle that all the time, and we try to do a really good job on our website describing the boars, and we list some of the traits. You know, we try to put it there like in the bullet points, you know, what these specific boars might do to make your sows better. But I'd say, you know, on a daily basis, we get, you know, dozens and dozens of people calling, and they might not be real sure, you know, what boar would work the best for them. But, you know, we've been around these boars. We see them every day. You know, Randy, Mitch, Aaron, you know, this is what we do. You know, this is our only job. This is not a hobby for us. This is our way of life. So, you know, if you can describe us your sow on the phone and tell us, you know, what she looks like as far as, you know, frame, growth, skeleton, soundness, muscle patterns, you know, anything like that will definitely help. And then, you know, what your result might be. You know, are you trying to make replacement females? Are you trying to make meat hogs? Are you trying to make show bearers? Are you trying to make, you know, sometimes I just don't care and I want a litter of pigs, but, you know, still, you know, we can definitely help you out. Just, you know, knowing the end result, knowing the goal, you know. So let's get in a little bit about like pures versus crosses. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but more specifically, like if you're wanting to breed Durocs or Yorkshires or Berkshires, what's some of the traits you might think, you know, some of those would bring to the table, you know, for guys that might not know, because each breed does kind of have what it's best at.
Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I mean, pures versus crosses. I mean, most of the time crosses, you know, I mean, you're going to use those for your county fair, market hog shows, you know, maybe even your state fairs or whatever. But I mean, and then again, their state fairs and some of your county fairs, maybe around the country, would have purebred classes too. I guess if you're trying to make them for a county fair or something like that, you're going to try to make them have a little more power, a little more muscle. You can always have bone. I mean, bone never goes out of style, especially flat bone where they mature kind of later. And then if you're just kind of strictly wanting to try to make females to make that next generation better, you know, then we're going to try to use like later maturing hogs, hogs that will mature at 350 pound, you know, versus 220, 230, you know. I mean, those later maturing hogs are kind of the ones that that are going to lay down and be productive and do good in the fairing house and kind of generate, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Picking out the boars out of the sows that generate in the fairing house, something you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that is probably one of our number one goals on this farm, is making sows that generate in the fairing house. So let's dive just a touch deeper. I don't want to get too in depth there, run out of time a little bit, but to me, that's probably the motto of our farm is making sows that generate in the fairing house.
Yep.
So just a nickel deeper on that. Some traits that you think, flexible spine, a little softer muscle pattern, stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, just our sow herd. I mean, you got differences in your sow herd. Everybody does. I mean, you're going to have some are a little quicker, a little later, we kind of strive for those later maturing hogs. Our sows, we want them to lay down. We want them to farrow unassisted. We want them to raise a nice litter of pigs. We want them to milk. We want them to wean those pigs and be fairly big when they wean them. Productivity is pretty key. Those sows that we have that we'll sell a lot of bred gilts out of them. They'll have a litter and say we'll sell 6 or 7 bred gilts out of them. They're kind of our higher priced bred gilts. Those are the sows that we kind of focus on, and we continue to try to make better hogs with them. And those are the sows that their next litter, we might keep a boar or two, kind of tap into that genetics and try to see what we can make with them. And it's just all about productivity. They got to lay down, they got to milk, they got to farrow. And then once they do that, then we're more keen on trying to select boars and females to keep and stuff out of them. We kind of give them that opportunity to fail, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guys, we have some that fail right off the get-go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Nobody's, yeah.
No, and they do not get a second chance.
No.
If they can't get the job done the first go, there's not a second go. If they get the job done the first go, then we get a little more faith and we start mating them to different boars. Not very seldom do we mate the same sow to the same boar twice, once in a while.
Once in a while. But
It's got to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yep.
But, a guy told me many, many years ago, you fall in love with one particular mating, what are you missing with another mating? And so, getting those sows tapped to a handful of different boars over their lifetime gives us an opportunity to really figure out just how good that sow is and how powerful she is and what she can generate. And like I mentioned earlier, guys, it's sow power. It's those sows that make the huge difference in so many of these boars. And you get that really, really good sow and that generates and she might raise 3 or 4 herd boars.
Yeah.
Every
and then
one
that's the sow you try to put in as many pedigrees as you possibly can.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's try to get her, and not just her, but let's put her in 10 or 12 different females that we want to put in this herd with her in there because of the ability she had. And all of a sudden it becomes simpler.
That's how you make progress.
Yep. Yeah, it really is. And Rick had mentioned, the different breeds, Berkshires, noted for their meat quality. And yes, they are. It's very good meat. And it's what we all put in our freezers. It's very, very tasty and very good quality meat.
I haven't put a non-Berkshire in my freezer in 12 to 15 years.
Oh, I know. It's been a long time. Yep. Berkshires, do they all grow at a very high rate of speed? No, but some of them do, guys. And so we concentrate on those that can perform and get the job done. Berkshires, very, very seldom do we have a Berkshire female that as a bred gilt that we sell, and we sell a lot of Berkshires that doesn't perform at a high level. They're very, very good in the fairing house. Durocs are always there, and would you guess 2 to 3 weeks faster in the finishing barn than anything else?
Oh, yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
The goats out, they're always some of the first ones to come out.
Yeah, they are. Yep. And we've had Duroc boars where we sold all the Duroc barrows out of room 2 and we had to go into room 3, which was a younger room, when we start taking our second cut out of room 2. They'll be just as big. So Durocs, they perform at a very, very high level. the nice thing about Durocs is there's Durocs out there, guys, that are not as good in the fairing house as what they should be. We've eliminated all that. We very seldom come up with a Duroc gilt that doesn't just flat do a really good job raising pigs. And then all of a sudden you've got one that grew really, really fast that can lay down farrow with ease and raise a lot of pigs. Hampshires are always known for their leanness and muscle. And there's been times that Hampshires have been known for, or you can put together Hampshires that are really good in the fairing house, and then some of them not quite as good. And I've really struggled with Hampshires over the years, and we'll get a board that does a really, really good job, and you kind of concentrate on him for a while. And right now we've got a couple boards we think we can build a really, really, really good Hampshire sour with. And so, we don't raise as many Hampshires as what we have the other breeds. The other two breeds, Duroc and Berks, are number 1 and number 2 here. We want to try to get a little bigger in the Hampshires because there's a little demand for that. But we want to make Hampshires that will make really, really good hogs. We've got a couple boards right now we think we can do that with. Yorkshires are always noted as a mother breed, and we've tried to keep that process in the back of our minds. It's really hard. You go to some of these national shows and these bigger type hog shows, and some of these Yorkshires have kind of started looking like show barrows. And vulva size is real key for us, and a lot of those hogs, a lot of those white hogs have maybe not been quite big enough vulva for us. But thanks to 2 or 3 guys, and thanks to some of the boars we've made here, we've been able to keep some pretty productive type of Yorkshire boars. But Yorkshires are always known for their milk flow and their pigging ease, and we've tried to maintain that. Although that breed, all these breeds go in cycles. All of a sudden, they're the very best ones in the country, and you go, wow, let's concentrate on that. And then all of a sudden, they're not quite as good, and something else takes over. So all these breeds go in a rotation, and Yorkshires are just now kind of probably coming out of their all-time low or close to it.
I didn't like Yorkshires for the last couple of years, really.
Right.
Or at least, when you go out and see it as a whole.
Right. But now, all of a sudden, there's a boar here, or there's a gilt here, or whatever that you can grab a hold of.
We kind of had trouble finding Yorkshire boars that we wanted to buy.
That was kind of challenging.
For a little while. Not that we couldn't find them, but it was harder.
Yeah, well, and they looked a little more like a show bar,
but to find ones that suited our needs,
right?
What we wanted to make with our Yorkshire boars to make, Yorkshire sire.
Well, there for a couple of years we were just making our own, and here the last couple of years we've been able to find 2 or 3 that have been very, very good. So those 4 breeds are our main breeds. The spots, Aaron, you know more about them, but spots can be really productive and grow with the breeds other than Durocs, and
that's one thing I was a little bit surprised on once we started raising spots and having them in the barn. That, in my mind, not really been around spots as much as the other breeds. I didn't think they were going to grow and perform as well. And then we started putting these in, and I was a little bit shocked to see when we walked through the finishing barn that the spots are not just keeping up, but actually outgrowing some of the other breeds at times.
Yeah, they'll keep right up there with them on the growth.
Yeah. And fortunately, we've been able to find 3 or 4 spot boars that would make some pretty good females and make some pretty respectable type of hogs that go out and compete at a fairly high level. Yeah. No, spots is a breed that it's an alternative breed that a lot of folks like to use because
it's a popular alternative breed, though.
It is.
Kind of ups and downs, but I'd say the spots are kind of on an upswing right now.
Yeah, I would too. You go to the Springfield to the Spot National Summer Type Conference, and they have a really good show and a really good sale.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it's closing remarks. Is there anything we want to end up on here? Feel like we kind of covered the bases pretty well on boar selection. Basically, it's all we think about. When we're out here, what boars are we going to use and buy and put in the boar stud and breed our sows and the gilts with. Very, very important getting them matched up. We could have a really good sow, what we deem as a good sow, a really good boar, that we think is a good boar, but then when you put them together, it doesn't always work. So,
And we always just kind of bounce ideas off of each other too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we'll talk about the sow and, hey, what do you think? You know,
Mm-hmm.
why are you thinking this? Why are you thinking that? And we kind of, sometimes I win, sometimes Randy wins.
Now, did we call that arguing or talking?
I don't know.
I think we've caught it both at times.
You know, guys, a real cute story. Several years ago, Mitch walked in the office and he said, I am so sorry. He said, I bred this sow to this boar, and I know she's one that you'd really, really like, and you told me to breed her a different way. And I bred her to this boar. I'm sorry. I said, well, Mitch, you know, you've been with me. Maybe at the time it was 10 years.
Yeah.
And now it's over 20.
Yeah.
But
You didn't fire him over it.
no. He said, you want me to utilize her and kick the litter out and breed her again? I said, no. I said, we'll take a shot. I said, how much you might be right. No. You know, that's how I laid down. I had a whole bunch of pigs, and that was what, our number 1, number 2 litter of the year that year.
Yeah.
I don't remember which boars were involved.
Tough. Raised the herd board, we called it Tough.
Yeah, he remembers. I know.
And then I think he kept every daughter in that litter too.
Yeah, for multiple years.
Yeah.
So I guess with the bottom line of that story, you know, you can think about what you want to do and try to get it all figured out. And most of the time, you know, we feel like we get it all figured out. But sometimes just, you know, stuff happens and it works.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
You know, trial and error. It's called trial and error for a reason. But,
Yeah.
you know, but we try to definitely put a lot of thought and education and history behind what we do.
So ever since that time, guys, when he tells me what he thinks, I consider it. I consider it.
So I might hold a little more weight now.
Yeah.
But, well, guys, thanks for tuning in. We had a heck of a time. You know, with these podcasts, I really feel like the first couple episodes were well received. You know, we've had a lot of phone calls and messages sent, you know, about them. We're going to keep doing these. We've got some special guests lined up. I'm not going to divulge out any names just yet, but keep an eye on us here. You know, we do have some special guests on the way that'll be making appearances in some future episodes. So we're going to keep cranking these out. As always, feel free to reach out with some questions or some topics you want to see us discuss. Best way to do that is just either a phone call or send us a message or an email or whatever. You know, we've got multiple ways you can call or talk to us or, you know, anything like that. So,
Yeah, you know, the big thing, guys, and we mentioned it before, they're arguing for us tapping on the table.
no, you're good.
Don't hesitate to call us. We're very reachable. We want to help as much as we can. You know, if you don't get an answer, leave a message. We'll definitely call you back if we
might be 5 phone calls in the middle of it. When you
Right,
call, you know,
right.
phone rings an awful lot around here.
But we are very, very willing. Any of us are very, very willing to help.
sure.
And,
For sure.
So if you have questions, call.
So, like always, you know, like, comment, share on some of these posts as you see them, and tell your friends and your family about you know, watching the podcast. We're doing our best here to try to get everyone as educated because, you know, we feel like there's a lot of people that are doing this now, and we just want to help out the best way we can.
Yep.
So, with that, we're going to jump off here. Until next time, you know, we're going to try to do these once a week as best we can. You know, we're going to get busy here in the fall, so it might become challenging to keep cranking these out. But believe me, we're going to do the best we can to get these out to you. So once again, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.